Hey everyone, and thank you for joining me for this quick presentation on the 7 steps to B2B omnichannel content ROI. And it's a complete guide to turning your words into revenue and help you use that vital content to make sales, increase your revenue and profitability. So, really quick, an intro about me. I'm Kelly Reeves. I'm a cybersecurity and IT copywriter and editor with over 25 years of tech industry experience. I've worked with global brands such as Target, WD, Kingston, Apple, Acronis, Ingram Micro, Apple, Broadcom, just to name a few. I write human generated copy and not AI generated. And even though there is a place for AI when it comes to creative content creation, it doesn't really capture the connection and the engagement and your brand voice and the things that really do drive loyalty, sales, revenue, and profitability. And this really helps me create content and copy for you that is engaging, but also authentic. And it tells your story and from your brand's voice, which today is super important. So we're going to go into this really quick. The 7 steps here. Step 1 is to define your marketing objectives. So to outline your tactics and strategies, make sure they align with your objectives. What are your strategies and how do they align with your goals? What are you trying to achieve? Define and refine your message. So your message is super important because that is going to be kind of your North Star of where you're going to go with your content. What are you trying to achieve? What is the overall message? What is the goal of this message? And remember, that message may be a couple different messages depending upon the size of your audience and if you have various types of audiences that you communicate with. So for example, I have multiple audiences. I have PR and marketing agencies who hire me to write for them. I have cybersecurity companies that hire me to write for them. And I have other types of companies that hire me to write for them. So I need to make sure that I have refined messages, like I define the audience and refine the message for each audience. So, and it's also, you got to get crystal clear on the who, what, when, why, where, and how. The who, of course, who is your target? What are you trying to say to them? What are you trying to achieve? What does it mean to them? When? This is really important because timing is everything, especially with what is going on in the world today, what's going on in your company. Make sure that your content has a win, WHEN strategy, so that it is always put out in a timely manner. Is it seasonal? Are there trends? Was there a big breaking news story that you can capitalize on? So always get clear on the when, the why. What is your why? Like why are you doing this? And also, why is this important to your audience? What are they going to get out of this? And why do you want to send them this piece of content? What do you hope you will achieve? And then, of course, how are you going to do this? Is it your blog? Is it a white paper? Is it a case study? Is it going to be a social media post? So really get clear on all of these elements as part of your content marketing objectives and strategy. And of course, you're going to want to perform market research on these trends, your keywords for SEO purposes, your competition. What are they doing? What are they saying? And be very clear on the research, and that data is going to be super important on when it comes to the type of content you create, the who, the what, the when, the why, and the how. And then, of course, outline the goals you want to achieve the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months. At the time of this recording, it is the end of July. We're going into August. We're going to start going into Q3 and Q4. So what do you want to say, Q4, end of the year, next year? So what do you want to achieve with your content within the next year, but break it down, chunk it down into 3-month period, because that'll make it a lot easier for you rather than try to, boil the ocean and get your content all done in 12 months. So step 2 is to conduct audience research. Of course, this is probably one of the most important steps. So you can define who your ideal client or customer is, and or what I call your ideal client avatar. What do they look like? What do they read? Where do they sit on social media? Are they mostly on LinkedIn? Are they mostly on Facebook? Are they mostly on Instagram? What is their title? What is their job function? What are they buying? What are they doing? And it's really important to get into your ideal client avatar's head and where they are, and that's going to help them make that buying decision. And what size company do they work for, or do they have? Your ideal company may be a big Fortune 500 company, or you may just be like startup or early stage funding or SMB. So what size company do they work for, or do they have if they're the business owner? And then how many people are involved in your client's buying journey? Obviously, a smaller company, you're going to have fewer people involved in the process. But, and I've seen it where sometimes it's just one or two people, and sometimes it could be seven people. So you have, especially if you are, say, an MSP, and you are going in and you're dealing with the CIO, you're dealing with the internal tech person, you're dealing with, accounting, whoever. So there could be so many different layers. So you have to make sure that you understand how many people are involved in your client's buying journey. And going back to the previous slide, the who is involved at each step in that journey. And then understand their unique pain points and how you solve them. So for me as a copywriter, the unique pain points are, copywriting, creating content is super time consuming. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of research. Not everybody has that kind of time. So I help solve that problem for them by creating the content that they need, that they can turn around and put on their blog post or on their social media, or say if it's a white paper or a case study. So understand your customer's unique pain points and how you solve them. So step number 3 is to perform a content audit. So what types of content are you putting out there now via your various marketing channels? Are you putting out blog posts or bylines, social media posts, white papers, case studies? Like, what type of content are you putting out there, and how is it landing with your audience? And also, is it concise, clear, and error-free? As a proofreader, having error-free, clear, and concise content is very important, because it really does lead to your reputation. Having clear, concise, and error-free content gives you an extra level of trust and reliability, and it gives you the ability to make sure that you've done your homework, you've done your research, you've done the work. And so error-free content, if you've got content that's full of errors, it immediately knocks your credibility. So make sure that all your content is clear, concise, and error-free. And it's free of difficult to understand jargon and industry speak. I know in the IT space, we love to drop acronyms and stuff like that. But your audience member that you're selling to that's reading this content may not be super techie. So, and this goes to the next one, is your content, too complex for the non-techie executive to understand? So understand, going back to the previous step, who's involved in the buying process, and understand that they may not be super techie. So you want to make sure that your content is easy to read, it's easy to digest and understand, so you don't really confuse people or think, oh my gosh, I can't even read this, it's too much for me, and then you've lost them. And then finally, how often does your audience engage in your content? And that's going to be where the analytics and the data also come in. Are they going to your website once a day? Are they reading your blog post once a day? Are they engaging with your content every day on social media? So how often does that happen? Moving on to step 4, tap into your existing assets. So what proven content can you use that you could play off of? So have you put a blog post out there that got a ton of downloads or views? Or did you put something out, say on LinkedIn, a post that got a lot of engagement and comments and likes or whatever? So what proven content can you use to play off of? Because then you can do what I absolutely love to do, is repurpose. And I actually just posted an article on my LinkedIn about repurposing content, because if you can take a piece of content, and again, going back to how it takes some time, it's complex and all that to create content all the time. If you have that golden piece of content or a few pieces of content that you can repurpose. Say you have that blog post that people really resonated with, and you can take that and put it in as a LinkedIn post, or you can maybe do something that is a multimedia piece. If it's a longer form piece of content, say it's a white paper, can you turn that into a webinar? So I'm all about repurposing content that has been successful for you in the past. And what assets speak best to your target audience or group? So is there a piece that spoke best to, say, CIOs? Is there a piece that spoke best to the IT guy or gal? So what asset speaks best to your specific target audience? And define where each piece fits in your sales funnel. So you're going to have the beginning of your sales funnel where, say, you invite somebody to watch a video like this. And so you invite somebody to watch the video like this, and then you get their email address. So now you have different types of content that you're going to be putting out there in that part of the sales funnel. And that's probably going to be your email nurtures and your posts. So define where each piece fits in your sales funnel. Once they've actually called you or once they've actually scheduled a call, then what type of content are you putting out there? Then once you get the sale, now you've got a customer. So how do you keep them engaged as a customer? And how do you maybe cross-sell them or upsell them to keep them as a paying customer? And then finally, make sure to update any legacy content visually and contextually. If you have some content that maybe was good, say pre-pandemic, but is not, up to par today, make sure that you change that, because a lot has changed. Obviously, in the past 3 years, more people are working from home, a lot of cloud access. So just make sure that you update any legacy content visually so it matches your brand currently and contextually. Step 5 is to establish a full funnel content framework. So ensure your content meets your customers' needs at every stage of the sales process. So like I said before, from the very beginning, say you posted a link to a white paper you did or a case study or something that's going to help give you thought leadership and expert positioning, to make sure that that content that's at the beginning stage of the sales process. They call, now they're in the middle stage of the process. They close the deal. This is the end of the process. And then they go on as an existing customer. So just make sure that that will establish the multiple promotional and content channels, and know who is involved at each stage of the sales process, and develop your content accordingly, because it could be the marketing manager saw your piece on LinkedIn and they thought it was great. And so they took it over to the IT team, and so they are now involved. So as I said at the beginning, there are going to be multiple people, depending upon the size of the company, involved in each stage of the sales process. So your content's going to have to make sure that it meets each individual at each stage of the sales process, depending upon who is involved, what stage of the sales process they're at, etc. And then, of course, develop a post-sale content strategy. That's what I was talking about earlier. Once they are your customer, how do you keep them engaged? How do you keep them informed? How do you keep them updated on new products and services? How can you upsell and cross-sell them? How can you turn them into a one-off, into monthly recurring revenue model? So, and that's how your post-sale content strategy is going to be, to not just get the customer, but to keep the customer. And then determine which content media is earned, owned, or paid. So earned media is like what I do in public relations. I would say pitch your story to CRN or CSO or your target publication. They write an article that is earned media. Owned is stuff you created, your white papers, your case studies, your blog. Those are your assets that you created and that you own. And then, of course, paid is your advertising, any paid advertising that you do. Step 6 in this process is, of course, establish those key performance indicators. So what are your content benchmarks? What do you hope to establish in the month? So say you have your month of content laid out, your content calendar all set up. What do you want to achieve? How much engagement do you want on your social content? How much engagement do you want on your website? So what are those benchmarks? And then how many monthly unique visitors do you have to your website? And of course, you should have analytics set up. If you have a business set up with LinkedIn, you're going to get analytics. Facebook can give you analytics. Instagram can give you analytics. your website, and you can have Google Analytics. So whatever, just make sure that you get that data, because that's going to tell you how things are performing, especially if you have content that lives on your website. You can see which people are going to that. And then, of course, how many social engagement and shares are you getting? Are you producing stuff LinkedIn, and are you getting the engagement? Are you getting the shares? Are you getting the likes? Are you getting the comments? So you got to see how. And then going back to what I said on the previous slide about repurposing, which content is getting the most engagement, the most likes, the most shares, and that's what you really need to play off of. So even if it's a small like blurb on your social media, how can you turn that into a fuller post or maybe even a white paper? So, and what is the conversion rate on your content assets? And then what's the length of your sales cycle? Because a sales cycle really depends upon the company. It could be very brief. It could be, a couple weeks, or it depends, like if you're an MSP and you have to go into the company and you have to do a whole audit analysis on the tools they use, their systems, are they on premise, the cloud, all that. You're going to have to get a lot of people involved, and that sales process could be a lot longer. So I've actually heard companies where the sales process could take up to a year, depending upon what the type of implementation and services you're selling could be. And then finally, assess, adjust, and iterate, because you're going to do all this content. It's going to be great. And there are going to be things that are like, this is great, and things that are not so great. So you're going to want to assess all that. You're going to want to adjust, pivot accordingly, and then iterate. So leverage data insights to track results. Like I said earlier, you can do the analytics on social media. You can see who's engaging on your website. So you can see if you put out, say, a white paper where people have to opt in and fill out a form with their, name, email address, maybe their title, whatever, so what type of results are you getting with that download, and determine what's working, what's not working. If it's not working, get rid of it. And really capitalize what is working, and then just be agile, flexible and ready to pivot, because things won't always be perfect. You could put out a piece of content that you think is super great and wonderful, and it just is crickets with your audience. So you have to be ready to pivot and say, okay, that didn't work. Why didn't it work? Where do we fall short? So just make sure that you're agile and flexible and ready to pivot, and just understand your audience behavior changes. You have to adjust strategies accordingly. Like I mentioned earlier, your audience is a different audience as they were, pre-pandemic. We have different mindsets. We have different work policies. We have different, cybersecurity has changed dramatically. People are working from home remotely. So audience behavior has changed dramatically, especially in the past 3 years, and how they engage with content, how they work, and all that. So you got to make sure that you stay up with audience and those behavior changes, and continue to nurture and improve your campaigns as time goes on. It's not going to always be perfect. You're going to say, okay, this worked, this didn't. How can we nurture that? How can we improve it? And be ready to iterate and adjust and pivot, so you can continue to create consistent content that resonates with your audience, each member of your audience at each stage of the sales cycle. So I hope this was super helpful. If you are ready to turn your words into revenue, schedule a free content call with me. I'm happy to go over some of your stuff and give you an audit and make some suggestions and see how you can leverage this content that you've created, because content, you can't have marketing without content. It is so vitally important to your marketing and sales strategy. So schedule a free call, go to my website there. I have a calendar, and let's set something up. And I look forward to speaking with you. And thank you so much for listening. I hope this was super helpful. This is posted on my LinkedIn. If you did find it helpful, I would love it if you commented and let me know, because this is my content that I'm giving to you. So I would love to know how it works. So maybe I have to go back and iterate and pivot and go back to the drawing board. So thank you again, and I hope to speak with you soon.